I think I'm gonna start with the intro and get one that I like, and then I'll come back. Okay, so let me start with this first one. I made a mistake. Can you guys tell me why I decided to make an entire universe for a one shot? So our DM has forsaken us. He's going on vacation, and we're not going to be able to play this week. So the group actually asked me to do a one shot. And me, of course, being the narcissist that I am, decided I'm going to make an entire homebrew world for a 4 hour session. It started off simple. It was going to be just a simple monster slaying quest, and then it just spiraled, dude. The more that I worked on it, the more excited I got for it. I just started thinking and thinking. And so now, instead of just being a zombie slaying quest, it's a Witcher and Bloodborne inspired gothic horror. I just started going too far with it. And then now I just had an idea where eldritch beings were fighting a war over the material plane. So throughout this war, they were trying to, whoever the victor was, basically had dominion over the material realm. And with that dominion, they would hold power over the rest of them. But what ended up happening was they thinned the lines between the realms. And now, every 10 years or so, there's something called the Umbral Eclipse, where monstrosities and fiends and aberrations and everything just pour into the material plane. So this is a world now where beings exist that hunt in the dark, you know. So it's obviously very inspired by The Witcher. It's a dark, grim, like gothic horror vibe that I think I'm gonna go for. So with this being the case, with the world, the material plane being overrun by these monstrosities and aberrations and everything, there has now been a guild placed together that it's a privately owned organization that stands a little bit higher than like kings and lords and everything. So, and what the Nocturne's Oath is, think of it kind of like the Demon Slayer Corps and Demon Slayer, where they fight to protect the innocent people of the world. So it's basically a military force that fights against the monstrosities, the aberrations, the fiends. What ended up being the most oppressive force is vampirism, because instead of it just being like a monster, it's a disease. So every 10 years, more of those pour out, and then they just keep the cycle going where they're able to create more. The Nocturne's Oath is able to take care of all of the other monsters within that 10-year period, but the vampires are able to hide as humans for the most part, and they're a little bit harder to control. So the Nocturne's Oath ended up kind of just becoming like a vampire slaying guild, but it's the main force that keeps the material plane functioning. So it's a very, very important factor. And the way that I've decided to start it is, unfortunately, everybody has to be part of this Nocturne's Oath.
Oh! Ew! Dude! What the fuck?
I know that doesn't allow too much creativity, but it's just, obviously it's just a one shot. So the 5 people start as different branches of the Nocturne's Oath. And the way that I've decided to run it is there's someone named Thalan Voss, and he's basically the leader of the Nocturne's Oath. He's the head of the organization. Everybody that works for it knows who he is. Well, he decided to go and investigate a town called Lithonia, who have claimed outwardly that they found the secret to eternal life. So Thalan himself goes to investigate and see what's going on with this town. And then now the Nocturne's Oath has been met with a radio silence for like 3 days. He's gone completely missing. He hasn't interacted with anybody. So what ends up happening, what's going to be like the start of the one shot, is going to be the Nocturne's Oath pulling these 5 players that are going to end up playing with me from different branches based off of their skills, their intelligence, their people skills, their mercilessness, however they decide to make their characters. But the ploy to action is the fact that the leader of this guild has been missing, and they've been cherry picked by the Nocturne's Oath to go and see what's going on in Lithonia. And the main, that's going to be kind of the call of action. That's going to be what gets them into it. So they're going to start off in a horse-drawn carriage heading towards Lithonia. That is, just a little rundown of the world, the way it exists, why it exists, and the importance of the Nocturne's Oath. So the goal that I have is to allow them to feel powerful. I don't want these people that are basically vampire slayers in a world full of vampires to not feel powerful. So I think I'm going to run it at level 5. They'll have enough to where they don't feel weak, and then enough for if they get met with an oppressive force, that the force feels oppressive. And I've been watching Pointy Hat, that YouTube channel, amazing channel. He inspired me to do like act systems. There's Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And I want big choices in each of the acts. So, I guess am I doing too much trying to create like a whole world for a one shot? There's obviously a lot more that I need to do with the thoughts and the ideas, but the more that I think about it, the more excited I get to add like reasons for things to exist, And speaking it out, getting it all out here, I realize how much more like that goes into the world building. I just have the basic like founding, basic building blocks, the basic foundation. If anyone watching is a player, turn the video off. The big twist I want to have at the end, just to not ramble on for too long. Seriously though, if you're watching this before we play, go ahead and turn the video off. Is that Thalon the whole time was actually like a vampire lord. He's been, from the very beginning, grooming these fighters, like these powerful people. He's been grooming them from the beginning. They've texted me different reasons why they joined the guild, why they joined the Nocturne's Oath. And my goal at the very end is, when they've learned that Thalon is this vampire lord, is that the reason they joined were all completely inspired by him. Like, he's the reason that they all ended up at the Nocturne's Oath, and the whole time he's been grooming them to make them stronger. And then Lithonia was nothing but a ploy to get the strongest people from the Nocturne's Oath to Lithonia so that he can turn them into his vampire thralls. And with Lithonia, the whole idea is that it is a town of like perfectly perfect people, but in an eerie way. You show up and they're a little too perfect to the point of it becoming eerie. So they go and they see flawless skin, but there's no life behind the eyes in these people in Lithonia. And what's going on is Thalon is making a deal with one of the outer gods to try and create a perfect species, basically, to allow himself to be the vampire without the drawbacks, the eternal life, the strength, without the drawbacks. And the way he's doing that is he's sacrificing these people, Lithonia, to this outer god. And so he is, in a sense, creating eternal life, but it's coming at the cost. He's creating like a peace for these eldritch beings to exist in the material world. So when the group gets to that end point, there's like, I want there to be that question of like, okay, there is the option to join Thalon. He's gonna greet them and try and obviously convince them to join him willingly, so he doesn't have to force them. But throughout the process of the one shot, I want them to start realizing that there's something way bigger going on in Lithonia. Like, it's not just vampirism. Like, with passive perception checks and stuff like that, I want them to look at the walls and see like the walls moving, or there to be eyeballs, or feel like something's constantly watching them. A lot of different things that I plan on doing with it. It's hard to formulate like an idea around it all. I'm super excited. I want there to be levels and plot twists of stuff that absolutely leaves an impression on them. So I guess my question is, like, am I doing too much, or what are some insights or some cool thoughts that you guys may have about like ways that I can make it a little more immersive, or have like some shock value, eventually, like kind of what I'm hoping it does, why I'm putting so much effort into actually creating a world, is that every time there needs to be a one shot, I can just kind of have like the side universe that everybody exists in, and it just continue a story throughout like multiple different characters of this world, right? So it's definitely a pretty big task. In the end, I'm trying to decide if I want there to be like PvP aspects, where if part of the group decides to join Thalon and the other parts of the group decide not to. But I don't know like a good outcome for that. Just, what are some thoughts, some opinions? Am I going too much for a little one shot, or should I dial it back, not try and have too much going on, and just return to like a monster slaying quest? I will say everybody's really interested about it. There's a lot of people who have created some really interesting character ideas. So just any DMs out there, any one-shotters, anybody who has any advice, feel free to let me know in the comments. Feel free to leave an opinion or a critique, or however you want to do it. I will look at all of them.